So we just had the 2025 general elections in Jamaica, and unsurprisingly, there are mixed feelings about the results of the general elections. The Jamaica Labour Party won 35 seats, and the People's National Party won 28 seats. And the sentiment across Jamaica, unsurprisingly, is split across party lines. In 2025, it is very disappointing, and that's a generous word to use, that the tribalistic nature of Jamaican politics still persists. We would think that with a new generation of voters, we would have a more Jamaica focused approach when it comes to how we exercise our right to vote. There are a few contending issues that are at the forefront of the political debate right now, arising from the general elections. And the first one, I think, and the most controversial, is that most Jamaicans believe that Prime Minister Andrew Holness did not win his seat. I too share that sentiment. I know persons may disagree, but at the end of the day, the optics and the things that were happening on election day raise questions in our minds as to the legitimacy of that seat. There is also the issue of hiccups, and that's another generous term that I'm using, on election day, where persons were spending 1 to 2.5 hours in line just to cast their vote. The excuse that the electoral official gave is that there were persons who showed up with invalid IDs or persons who showed up that did not have an ID. And there is this lengthy process that they have to go through in order to get the person to vote. So they had to swear them in, they had to take an oath, and a bunch of stuff. And it begs the question, there had to have been some sort of anticipation that persons would show up who didn't have an idea what the expired ID, and then how you're going to account for that. To the extent that persons were allowed to wait in line until one person take 25 minutes to get sworn in did not make any sense to me. Because if somebody shows up and they don't have an ID or their ID is expired and you have to go through this process that you know is going to take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, why would you then have the people in line wait until that process is completed? That does not make any sense. If it's one person, then that is understandable. But if you have several persons showing up without IDs or whatever, then it would stand to reason that you would have a member of staff deal with the swearing-in process for those persons, and then you can just put them, they will be next in line once the process is completed, but you would keep the line flowing so as not to unduly inconvenience the rest of persons that were there. So that was a bit of a red flag for me. Cliff Hughes on Nationwide was interviewing Glasspool Brown. I think he's the director of elections, right? And he was asking about why is it, because it has been the practice that if you show up on election day to vote and you are in line at 5 p.m. when the polls are supposed to be closed, once you're in line, you would be allowed to vote. And reports are that an overwhelming majority of persons who were in line on or before 5 p.m. were not allowed to vote. And that is not in keeping with the general practice of what normally happens on election day, and there is no explanation proffered as to why the practice was abandoned. And the director of elections was asked, I watched it on TVJ News, their live coverage of the election day results, where he said, yeah, as long as you're in line, at 5 p.m., you will be allowed to vote. So I am not sure why that was not followed through on. There is no explanation proffered to date, at least not that I am aware of. Any reasonable explanation given as to why persons were not allowed to vote. So that again, is sort of making the results of the election looks questionable, right? Then there is I think the most viral issue coming out of the election is the East Portland constituency, that was contested by the incumbent Ann-Marie Vaz and the PNP Isat Buchanan. And Isat Buchanan won that seat. And this will form the general thesis of this video. That is what I come to talk about, because when I saw the results, I was surprised. I'm like, how did Isat won that seat? It doesn't make any sense. And most Jamaicans were also surprised and concerned, and they were raising questions. And we're like, Portland, East Portland, you guys need to come to the front of the glass. You guys need to explain to us what happened with the seat. How is it? I mean, this was like PNP. This was not a partisan This was not a partisan sentiment. Everybody is PNP, JNP is saying the same thing. PNP is like, how did we win the seat? This doesn't make any sense. JNP is like, what's going on here? So it wasn't a one-sided query. It's like most Jamaicans are like, what happened in East Portland? Because the optics, at least from what we could see, is that Ann-Marie was working in the constituency. And let me define what I mean by working, because okay, there's a war going on in Ukraine right now. There's a war going on in Gaza right now. I don't live in Ukraine. I don't live in Gaza. So we would have to rely on what is reported in the news to inform our opinion on what is going on in Gaza. We would rely on the media to give a fair and balanced assessment or balanced reporting of what is happening in these parts of the world. And so if we are misinformed, it wouldn't be fair now to say, oh, we're dunce, we're this, we're that, because we don't live in these areas. So we have to take it as read, what we see on the internet, as representative of what is happening in this location. It's the same thing with Portland. We are seeing, it's not like we're actively interested in what's going on in Central Portland. We just see that from the looks of it, Ann-Marie seemed to have been an MP that was doing a good job. From the outside looking in, that is how it appeared to us. So when she lost her seat, naturally we were like, what's going on here? And it didn't matter which party you were from. It was like, oh, even the people were like, I didn't expect that we would have won that seat, because Ann-Marie seemed to have been working hard on there. So why did East Portland not give her the seat? And so I went on TikTok live, and I did also post a video on Instagram saying, hey, I need somebody from Portland to explain, because it is, it's something, it is interesting, and we would like to know what is really going on, like what happened, what caused you guys to not re-elect a member of parliament that the rest of Jamaica, from the outside looking in, it appears to us. Of course, we don't know for a fact. Just what we see. It appears to us that she had been doing a good job. So what happened? Right? Of course, this is Jamaica. We're the people who don't take nothing serious. We're going to take bad things, make joke, and everything is fun and games. So of course, there's going to be gimmicks and stuff that is to be expected. No one is immune from our antics. So there are people calling Portland Port Judas, and there are people saying, boys, Portland Judas slippers, and it is all in fun and games, because it happens with any time something happens, you'll always get people coming out and making jokes and doing gimmicks and putting out memes. It is par for the course, right? But there is a genuine interest, in knowing what exactly transpired. Can you explain to the rest of us so that we can understand? So yeah, fun and joke aside, yes, we're having our fun and we're saying stuff and we're carrying on, but we would like to know really and truly, in all seriousness, what happened. I saw several videos. So there was a video of a young lady who claimed to live in East Portland, and she proffered some explanations as to why they didn't vote for Ann-Marie. There was a compilation video that was done by Negos on YouTube, where people who I assume are from the constituency were explaining why they did not vote for Ann-Marie Vaz. And then there is this other YouTuber, I think it's Portland Spice TV, who had this 3-hour long live or whatever, which was supposed to be explaining why East Portland did not vote for Ann-Marie Vaz. And when I look at the reasons that they offered, it still doesn't make any sense to me. Because when you look at East Portland constituency, it has been overwhelmingly led by the PNP. As a matter of fact, from 1989 up to 2019, when Linvale Broomfield was murdered, the seat was held by the PNP. 30 years. So I find it peculiar, I find it interesting that the excuses that they are giving as to why they didn't vote for Anne-Marie are infrastructural issues, economic, the broader issues that are generally the responsibility of the member of parliament to go into parliament and advocate. The PNP held the seat for 30 years straight. And you're complaining about road and economic activity and education. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It seems to me, because I would expect that it would have been something specific to the MP herself to say, okay, these are the things that she was doing that we found to be detrimental to the constituency. And as a result of that, we had to elect someone else. So they were talking about road, and they were saying basically, the politicians have been promising to fix the road for years and nothing has changed. This is coming from the live that Portland Spice TV did. But I'm like, but the PNP was there for 30 years. So if you have a road issue, I'm not sure how that, like, what does that have to do with Anne-Marie? And from what we see, because they were complaining about the roads, right? But the road is the one thing that we saw Anne-Marie posting like religiously. She's always fixing road, right? But yet still they were complaining, at least in the live, that they had a road issue. So I'm still confused because I'm like, but Anne-Marie won the by-election when Mr. Bloomfield was murdered in February of 2019, and it was a very close election, by the way. You know, I think she won by 200 something votes. It was 9,600 something votes to 9,000, I think, 400 something votes, or whatever the case may be. It was a very close margin, right? So I just don't understand why we're still complaining about roads when the PNP held that constituency for 30 years. You kept voting in. So I suspect that it is a PNP stronghold, and something happened in 2019 that caused Anne-Marie to win, and then she won again in 2020, right? They also raised the issue of neglect and a lack of real development. So they said that they feel ignored by the central government and politicians, and they spoke about feeling left out, you know, while other places get attention, and they, you know, make reference to schools, health centers, local businesses. They said they want development and not just agriculture. But I remember these were the same people, if I recall correctly, that rejected one of the best members of parliament, I think, who was Damian Crawford. I believe that I would love to see Damian Crawford become the Prime Minister of Jamaica one day. I would very much love to see that. I think, you know, hopefully they don't corrupt him by then, but I would love to see him. I think he's one of the better politicians. And I like Andre Horn as well. I think Andre is a very bright young man, and I think that he has some good ideas as far as the development of Jamaica on a whole. But we know how politics works, and when there are international forces that have their hand in the pot, then the thing becomes much more complicated than the average Jamaican would understand. And so we need to bear in mind, keep it in the back of our heads, that insofar as the government of Jamaica may want to advance the welfare of the Jamaican people, there are international powers that may have other interests, and there are real threats that must be taken into consideration when we are trying to move forward and move, you know, from a developing nation to a first world country. It is not by happenstance that Jamaica is the way it is. There are foreign powers that have a hand in destabilizing this country. So East Portland, you know, the guy was very tempestuous. Let's just say that the guy who was doing the Portland Spice TV thing. He was very tempestuous in, his defense. Clearly, he's a PNP person, and this is the problem I have with politics in Jamaica. I can't speak for anywhere else because I haven't lived anywhere other than Jamaica. Is that it is almost impossible to find someone who is not biased. It is just, and I'm like, we have to put Jamaica first, because at the end of the day, Andrew Holness is the Prime Minister of all of Jamaica. It doesn't matter how much you hate him. It doesn't matter how much you hate the JLP. It doesn't matter how you claim that if you cut me, my blood will run orange. It doesn't matter. Whoever controls the government, their policies are the things that will be put forward in this country, and they will impact you. So at the end of the day, we have to vote based on policy, because it's the policy that is important. If a government is going to introduce more taxes, that is going to affect you. It doesn't matter how well you love the party or hate the party, it is going to affect you. So when you're casting your vote, when you go to the ballot box, you have to ensure that you look at the policies that the party is advancing and decide if that is something that you are on board with. And if it is not, then you should cast your vote for the other party if you think their policies are better. It cannot be that in the age of information, we are content to be misinformed. We are content to be blissfully ignorant. And so there was this kind of tribalistic, partisan view. We, the people of Jamaica, are saying, East Portland, we do not understand the result of that election. Why did you not vote for Ann-Marie Vaz? We're not saying that she was good. We're saying from the outside looking in, it appears as if she was doing a good job, and yet you guys did not vote for her. So we're asking why. So forget the gimmicks and the lick of, and that's Jamaica. We're all Jamaicans, and we know. We're the same person. If you're Anchapaf, we call you Wani. If you're too tall, we call you tall man. If you're big and swatty, we call you fatter. This is Jamaica. Your handicap, whatever your affliction is, that's what we're going to call you. So why put East Portland acting brand new? And then you're calling people dunce, and I don't see anybody coming on speaking that has any level of, intellectual currency that I could say, oh well, sure as hell put me to shame. You can't be calling people dunce when you are not demonstrating that you are intellectually superior to the people that you're calling dunce. We understand you are upset, but you have done something that requires an explanation, and we're asking you to explain yourselves. What happened? And the reasons that have been given does not make any sense. They don't. You're talking about neglect for real development. The PNP was there for 30 years straight. So why is that on the table? Because clearly you've been voting for the PNP and they weren't doing anything anyway. Right? They talk about justice for Linville Bloomfield. I don't know what that have to do with Ann-Marie Vaz. She's not law enforcement. One young man, I think 21 years old, was arrested and charged, and I guess he absconded bail or whatever the situation is, and they were claiming that, there were 4 DNA samples found at the scene, yet it's only one person. But this has nothing to do with Ann-Marie. The murder of Linville Broomfield has nothing to do with the Member of Parliament, Ann-Marie Vaz. She didn't kill him, and she cannot go and interfere in the investigation. She's not the mayor. You can't, what does that have to do with the MP? The murder happened before she became MP. And if you are contending that it was because this is what they are suggesting, that the JLP murdered Linville Broomfield so that they could install, because the East Portland is a PNP stronghold based on how the people have voted, even though I wouldn't want to say stronghold because the votes have been very close. It's not like they're winning by like these large margins. The votes have been very close. If you look at how the votes have been cast, it's, you're looking at, at the very most 60-40 majority, or like a 55-45. It's not like this big margin like we would see, like a 80% lead. So because that's what I would look at as a stronghold. Anywhere between 80 to 90%, you say that's a stronghold because you're looking at an overwhelming majority of the people voting for one specific party consistently. But that's not the case. It's it's in the 50-40, 60-40, 55-45, that sort of thing. It's not that wide of a margin. And the PNP has held that seat. There was one year when, I think it was in the 7th, I don't recall, when Siaga had that snap election and won by a landslide, and the seat was not contested. Right? And I think the JLP held it a few other times, maybe 1 or 2 other times from that. But for the most part, going all the way back to the 70s, it has been a PNP seat. So for you to be complaining about these issues, these long-standing issues, does not explain why you did not vote for Ann-Marie. It doesn't explain it. What did she do? Because if you're saying, well, we're looking at, but the PNP was there for 30 years, didn't do anything. So how is that a justified complaint? I don't understand. Of course, if she comes in, she has 5 years. There's just so much she can do in 5 years. Because 2019, you'd have to take that out of it because Linville had it from 2016 to 2019 when he was unfortunately killed, right? And then Ann-Marie had it for a few months, then the election was called in 2020 and she won again. So you're really looking at from 2020 up to 2025, which is, 5 years. Like, what could she have done that would have turned around the constituent, these long-standing issues that you have been having? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? Then they talk about political showmanship, and basically they were saying that she took credit for things that she didn't do. There was a bridge project that happened in the constituency, and she claimed that she built the bridge when she didn't. Okay, well, I guess that would be a justifiable complaint, but I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the previous MP, Mr. Bloomfield, started the project. He was killed, so clearly it would now fall to the next MP to finish the project. And so it wouldn't be incorrect if she's using that as part of her achievement. So if she completed the project that Mr. Bloomfield started, she can take some credit for it. Right now, if she's making it seem as if, oh, this was my baby, I did this all by myself, then I can understand the frustration. But if she completed, she could have stopped it a pass and not let it finish. But if she went ahead and finished the project, then it is only fair that she would include that in her list of achievements. So I don't understand. Then they were talking about vote buying and corruption. Every party in Jamaica buy vote. Every party in Jamaica. The corruption split 50-50 across the aisle. There was an article, I believe, in the Jamaica Observer that was showing all the scandals. And when you look at the scandals, both the JLP and the PNP have their fair share of scandals. So saying they were buying votes, but if they were buying votes, how was the election so close? Isat didn't win by a landslide. So what are you talking about? That doesn't make it it is like I said, the explanations that they're giving does not make any sense. Do not make any sense. Every party buys vote. They all do it. And if you guys were so much for progress, why did you not vote for Damian Crawford? Why? He came there. I don't know run him, so I don't want no vote. We'll never forget. Jamaica will never forget. So what are you guys talking about? That was one of the best MPs that came to that location, that could have lifted you guys up out of the situation that you are complaining about, and you guys did not vote for him. The issues that they are talking about are long-standing issues that did not originate with Ann-Marie Vaz. And some of the stuff that they're talking about falls outside of her purview. And I think that there is a general misunderstanding of what a member of parliament is supposed to do. And I think Isat should use this as an opportunity to educate the people in the constituency as to what his roles and responsibilities are. Because I think everything Jamaicans put on the MP, why do you think you have councillors? Why do you think you have a mayor? Do you think they're just there and it's a ceremonial role like the Governor General? It's not. These are the people that are in charge of the parish. The member of parliament is your advocate in parliament. That's why it says member of parliament, parliamentary representative, whichever one you want to use. Their job is to go in parliament and advocate for you. So you tell them what the issues that you're having in the constituency, and they go into parliament and advocate on your behalf. That is their job, advocacy. So I do not understand, there is the explanation that they're giving still does not explain what I gather from it is that these people are generally leaning towards the PNP, and so it doesn't matter what you as a JLP member of parliament go in there and do, you're still dashing your foot against the stone. It's a uphill battle. It doesn't matter what good you do, they're going to be ungrateful little fuckers. That's what I get from it. Because they come and they're upset and, you need to walk a mile in your shoes. We don't need to walk a mile in your shoes. We're asking you what happened. We're asking you to explain to us. We're asking for some damning evidence. We're asking you for something that we can see as a justifiable reason as to why you didn't vote for her. And this is not just JLP people asking. This is PNP people asking too, because it boggles the mind. From the face and the looks of it, the perception that we have is that this MP Ann-Marie Vaz was doing a good job based on what we see promulgated in the online media space, and then she lost her seat. I never expected Rhoda Crawford to lose her seat either, and I don't know Rhoda and I don't know anybody in her constituency, but the optics from what we see on social media, she appeared to be a hardworking MP. So we assumed that come the general election, she's going to win her seat. And she did. So it was no surprise to us because from what we could see on social media, she appeared to be doing a good job. It was the same thing with Ann-Marie Vaz. She appeared to be doing a good job. So we expected her to win, and she didn't. So we're asking questions. There's no need for you to be upset. We're just saying, boy, this does not make any sense to us. Can you give us an explanation as to why? But talking about vote buying and corruption is not a justifiable reason because all of them buy vote. PNP and JLP by vote. What are you talking about? Why do you think there are strongholds and people are still complaining about issues that goes back 40, 50 years? How do you think people vote for people in a constituency that are not doing anything? Because they buy the vote. That's how it works. Both parties are guilty of voter buying. So to use that, if you're going to offer that, then they say victimization and nepotism, it happens everywhere. If you talk to anybody in any constituency where that is on the opposite side, they'll tell you the same story. If you don't vote for the JLP and the JLP is in power, you're not getting the farm work card. You're not getting this. You're not getting the day's work to go and do whatever. That's how it works. This has been happening from Bustamante time. This is nothing new. If PMP wins the seat, they're looking out for the people who voted for the PMP. That's a fact. If JLP wins the seat, they're looking out for the people who votes for JLP. So this is not something new. So it is not, it's kind of like some cost. When you're evaluating a project, you have some costs that whether it doesn't matter which project you choose, you will have to bear those costs. So those costs are not relevant to the decision. So if you're going to talk about vote buying and nepotism, that's how it works. That is how it works. And you're not asking for a change. Because what do you think is going to happen down in East Portland now? Do you think Isat is going to look out for everybody or is going to make sure that he secure the people that voted for him? That's how it works. That's politics. You look out for the people who looked out for you. You look out for the people who voted for you. Because at the end of the day, there's no guarantee, based on how Jamaican politics, that if you decide, say, okay, I'm going to help everybody, it's going to breed resentment among the people who voted for you. And the people that voted against you, there is still a 50-50 chance that they'll vote for their vote along party lines anyway. So why are you going to upset your base to try and win a few votes over on the other side? No, you're not. So this is not a new phenomenon. So it is not a justifiable excuse as to why you didn't vote for it. They feel disrespected by bloggers. What does that have to do with Ann-Marie? Everybody's trying to make content and make money. So they're gonna make headlines and thumbnails and say stuff that they think will push their video out and let it go viral so they can make some money off TikTok or YouTube. Well, I don't know if Jamaicans can make money on TikTok. I don't know, but I know YouTube certainly. Once you have 1,000 followers or more and over 4,000 hours in watch time, then you can be part of the YouTube partner program and you can start earning money. But that's what bloggers do. They do it to everybody. They must slaughter Andrew right now. So it's nothing new. The bloggers have Andrew name dragging through the mud. Right? They did it to Lisa Anna. Right? It's nothing new. Whatever the topical issue of the day is, bloggers are going to run with it and they're going to try. There's going to be this competition amongst them to see who can go viral, who can get the most views, and of course, truth become a casualty in the need to be first and the need to go viral. That is how it works in the blogger world or whatever the case might be. Politicians obviously are going to harp on whatever momentum that is going on in the public space that they can capitalize on and push their agenda. That's politics. So who is dunce? If you don't understand how this thing works, then you can't be calling people dunce. Because you have to understand the dynamics of what is happening. You have to be able to navigate the nuances that are happening in the public space. So vloggers are doing what vloggers do. Make content. They don't care who it hurts. They don't care if it is true. They don't care if it is... They don't care about that. It is content, and I'm just going to put up a catchy headline so that people click on my video. Because the more eyes I get, the more traffic I get to my channel, is the more money I can make. That's how it works. So how do you not get that? So why are you going to say you feel disrespected by black guys? No, we are calling the poor Judas because this is Jamaica. This is literally the culture. Why are you upset with the culture? Had it been another constituency, you would have engaged in the same disrespectful behavior. The same behavior that you're finding disrespectful because it is directed at you. And of course, when the spotlight is anybody who the spotlight is on, you're going to feel some type of way. That is understandable, right? But within all of that, you have to understand the context in which the conversation is being had. You can't now extricate yourself from the culture as if you're not Jamaican. You don't understand that this is how we carry on. We're gonna say stuff. We have our mouth very smart, right? And we have these comebacks, and we're gonna say stuff. I thought the poor Judas was. I thought that was funny as hell. I mean, come on. Nobody's trying to disrespect you. People are just surprised that you're like what's going on. They talk about low voter turnout. No, there was no low voter turnout. If you look at the previous election and see, I think more people turned out in this election than the previous election. I sat at 8,361 votes. Ann-Marie had 8,171 votes, right? So that was 16,566 people turned out in the 2025 election. We're not talking about the other people, the other party, JPP and whatever, right? In 2020, Ann-Marie got 8,271 votes. So she basically get the same amount of votes that she did in 2020. And Purcell Jackson got 6,268 votes. So we had a higher voter turnout in the 2025 election than we did in the 2020 election. Because 14,539 people voted in 2020 versus 16,566 persons voted in 2025. So there was no low voter turnout. In the by-election, that was when Mr. Bloomfield was murdered, it was 19,659 people that turned out. And that was the highest turnout in the history of that seat. The highest turnout in the history of that seat. 15,000 is the average. 15,000 plus people is the average. So that is typical. It's not low voter turnout. This is typical of the number of people who generally voted. Let's go back to 2016. We had 17,638 voters, right? The PNP got 9,510. The JLP got 7,858. In 2011, we had 15,747. PNP got 9,489. JLP got 5,898. 2007, we had 15,060. So this is representative of how the number of people who normally show up to vote. So there was no low voter turnout, right? So, like I said, as much as people like to say, oh, Jamaicans are, we are dunce and we're this and we're that. No, we're not. For the most part, at least for me, when I am going to proffer an opinion on any subject, I try my best. I'm not trying to be first in anything. I'm trying to be right. And I try to be as bipartisan as I can. Of course, you have a thing called unconscious bias. Everyone has it, right? But at least I'm not overtly biased. I'm not biased towards the PNP or the JLP because I always say Jamaica first, right? So the issue of low voter turnout is not true. You had more people turning out to vote in this election than the previous one in 2020. And the voter turnout is representative of what typically happens in the history of this division. It's averaging 15,000 plus votes. If you go back and look at the history of voter turnout in East Portland constituency, it's generally averaging 15,500 people. So there was no low voter turnout. They talk about voter suppression. One person said that it took them a whole 120 minutes to cast their ballot. But this was not unique to East Portland. This is a general sentiment that has been expressed by voters across the island. And of course, the director of elections is saying that, people showed up without IDs or the expired IDs, and we had to go through this long process of getting them sworn in, blah, blah, blah. And so that delayed the process. And of course, it vexes us that they did not properly handle that situation because, you shouldn't have people waiting in line while you're taking 25 minutes to swear somebody in. That does not make any sense. And I believe that they should replace the director of elections. That was you basically, were a part of the reason why people did not get to exercise their franchise. And they were saying that they're frustrated with the political system as a whole. But why, after 30 years, you just frustrated when Ann-Marie in there? I don't get it. The PNP has had that seat from... I did my research. The PNP has had that seat from 1989. So we had Keith Rudd in 1989. Then in 1993 we had Donald Rudd. I guess their family, and Donald Rudd held that seat from 1993 all the way up to 2007. From 1993 all the way up to 2007, Donald Rudd held that seat. So whatever issues that East Portland has, Donald Rudd could have fixed them. He had more than ample opportunity to fix that seat. Then Mr. Broomfield took the seat in 2011. And he took it again in 2016. And he probably would have won it again in 2020, suggesting that this is a PMP constituency. And so it doesn't matter what, that is what I'm taking from it. It doesn't matter what Ann-Marie did, whether she was doing good or doing bad. You guys would not have voted for her anyway. Because you're tribalists. And you come now feigning disgust and feigning upset and saying we should walk a mile in your shoes. The problems that you're afflicted with are not as a result of Ann-Marie Vaz being there. The problems were there before she got in. And her job as a member of parliament is advocacy. So if you had intimated that she was not advocating for our behalf in parliament, she wasn't speaking up for us, then that would have made sense, because that's literally her job. But the stuff that you're complaining about are general issues that falls outside of her purview to some extent, and issues that have been long-standing when the PMP that you voted for held power. And you're the same people who turned away Damian Crawford. So it is an indictment on you. And all the people I see coming forward to talk, you know, you're like like when somebody is guilty of something, and to cast suspicion off of themselves, they start blaming somebody else. That's what you do. You know, people are dunce, and you need to come and tell me what Ann-Marie Vaz has done. We don't live in the constituency. We are saying from the outside looking in, she seems to have been doing a good job. You didn't vote for her, so we're just curious as to why. That's what we're asking. We're saying she looked like she was working, and you guys didn't vote for her, so why didn't you vote for her? But you're not offering any kind of valid explanation as to why you didn't vote for her other than your PNP. Your explanations don't stand to scrutiny, East Portland. And you have let Jamaica down, because we are in 2025, and for the most part, what I would have loved to hear is why you voted for Isat. They did not give a reason as to why they voted for Isat. Tell me why you voted for it. When I looked at, so Isat was saying this, Isat was saying that, he was doing this, he was doing that, while Ann-Marie was busy on TikTok posting video of her on road. Okay, that would have made sense, but the explanations that you're giving are stuff that falls generally outside the remit of the MP, and long-standing issues that have been persisting in the constituency from 1959. And the PNP held the constituency overwhelmingly. The JLP had it two times before Ann-Marie won. The JLP held it twice, in 1980 and 1983. The 1983 one was not contested. That was when Siaga pulled that sleight of hand and won by a landslide. Twice. They held it from 1980 to 1989. 9 years out of since the constituency has been formed. JLP held power. Not counting Ann-Marie, 5 years. So what are you talking about? Whatever issues you have, you cannot blame Ann-Marie for it. No, if you're saying she wasn't advocating enough for you guys, we can accept that. But that is not what you're saying. The voter buying, and these are general issues that both parties are guilty of. Corruption. What are you talking about? Both sides are corrupt. Jamaica is not where it is at the corruption perception index because of the JLP. Because the JLP are so corrupt. Look at the history of Jamaica and the corruption perception index. And if you go back to when the corruption perception index was formed, I think it was in 1995, and you look at who held power for all those consecutive years and where Jamaica was on the index, and you take an average, it's almost 50-50. It's almost 50-50. I think the JLP comes out ahead. Did they? I can't recall. I think Andrew brought it down, so I think the PNP probably appeared more corrupt overall than the JLP, but it's not by a wide margin. It's almost 50-50. I did the math. I did a video on it, I think, last year. So, what are you talking about? These are long-standing issues that are not originating with Ann-Marie Vaz. I am not saying I like Ann-Marie Vaz or you should have. I'm just saying we thought from the outside looking in that she was doing a good job, and then you guys voted her out, and we're like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Because if you voted her out simply because you're PMP, then you're not wicked. That's the takeaway. If you voted for Isat simply because you wanted a PMP member of parliament in there, in spite of the work that the current MP is doing, then you guys are wicked. You're not Judas. That's all we're saying. And this is not what we want Jamaica to be. If a member of parliament is doing well, there should be no sides. Vote them back in because they're doing a good job. That's the point. Because that's what, for a member of parliament to come in and doing work and doing a good job is very unusual in Jamaica. And so I don't see why, if you have an MP working in a constituency, the election shouldn't be close. There should be no closeness. If the MP is working, they're in the constituency and they're doing a good job and they're addressing your issues, why is there a controversy about who you need to vote for? That does not make any sense. But we see people still voting along party lines. And that is why we are interested, because it's like, really? It's 2025 and we're still doing this foolishness? That is why Jamaica is concerned, saying, important what's going on. Because we're expecting that if you have an MP that is working for you, that you're going to choose yourself. Because you're supposed to choose yourself when you go to vote. You're not supposed to choose party. Choosing yourself means picking the person who is going to do the most good for you in that seat. That's what it means. And from our point of view, from our vantage point, from where we're sitting, it appeared as if you did not choose yourself, you chose party. I didn't want the JLP to win. Because I have some very strong opinions about the current Prime Minister and where he's trying to lead. If I were to vote, I wanted to vote for Dr. Andre Horton. I don't know how Marlene Malahoof would win her seat. Well, I think I know, but, I don't want anybody to sue me for defamation. The person that I would vote for, if my vote wasn't in another parish, I would have voted for Dr. Andre Horton. I don't know, I just don't understand what's wrong with these people down here in Montego Bay. Like, I don't know why they didn't give the Andre seat, because Marlene is not doing anything down here. She's literally not doing anything down here. Literally not doing anything down here. But they voted for her anyway. It doesn't make any sense. If I had the opportunity, I would want to vote for Andre Horton. Because I think he would do a good job. I think, I don't know, because, people win and then, it's something else. But I would have voted, I went to the electoral office some years ago, and I didn't like what the girl was rude, and I just didn't want to end up being escorted out there by the police. So I just left, right? Because I wanted to change because they have me in St. Ann, and I haven't lived in St. Ann for 15 years. So that's where my vote is. And I'm not leaving St. James to go to St. Ann to vote. I am not doing that. So I need to get my vote, I'm going to write to the electoral office of Jamaica and ask them because I wasn't really interested. I just walked in thinking that they would have helped me, but the person was not very helpful when I went there, and I just left because I don't do confrontations. If I go somewhere and you're being rude, I'm just going to walk away. Because if the drunk rain and me jump out, I'm probably going to end up in jail. So I just walked away. I didn't bother to deal with the thing. But I'm going to have because I think they need to come and verify where you live. I think that is one of the thing. So I'm going to write to the electoral office to get an explanation as to what exactly is supposed to happen. Then I'll go to the office down here. So I have my information with me, and then I'll have my, so I can get my polling division changed, because my vote wouldn't make much of a difference anyway, because he lost by a good margin. But, if I were to vote in this election, Andre Horton would be the one that I want to vote for. But unfortunately, he didn't win the seat. Right? But East Portland, you guys, what you guys are saying, I hear them talking about the selling off this stuff and they don't have access. No, Jamaicans don't have access to beach nowhere. Jamaicans don't have, this is not a PMP, this is not a JLP, it's a whole of government, because it doesn't matter when the PMP goes in. The PMP was there, for quite a good stretch. They didn't take back the beaches for us. You believe that if Mark Golding won, he would have said, oh, all beaches must now be open to Jamaicans. He wasn't going to do that shit. So what are you talking? Nowhere do we have access to beaches. This is not a partisan issue. This is not a partisan issue, so the PMP would not have done anything. They wouldn't do any, they're not going to go and say, oh, we're going to take back the beaches. They're not going to do that shit. Because they are private, the PSOJ runs Jamaica, not the PMP or the JLP. The PSOJ runs Jamaica. So if Mark Golding winning, there's certain things that he goes in there and he cannot do. So you're talking about, oh, they're taking the beaches from us and they're telling the fishermen that they can. That have nothing to do with Ann-Marie Vaz. It has nothing to do with her. This is a government thing. And for the most part, when you're having these issues, You're supposed to talk to your mayor. Talk to your mayor. What are you talking? You're supposed to talk to your mayor. Of course, the MP can raise the issue in Parliament, but it's not the MP doing the stuff. If they're taking your beaches, it's not the MP taking it. The MP is supposed to go and raise opposition in the Parliament. That is her job. But the thing that is happening where they say, oh, the fishermen can't fish here, and say, oh, I've been here from I was 1 year old, and now I'm 59. That has nothing to do with Ann-Marie, sir. She's not the one doing it. She can't. And if she's doing it, it's literally blatant. I'm sure it's something criminal. If you can prove that it's something criminal. And did you bring these issues to her? Because you guys are supposed to be having meetings and stuff, and you either with your councillor or your mayor or with your MP, and you bring the issues to the fore. And if you see where she's not at, because it's advocacy, that's her job, she's supposed to be advocating for you. So when you're talking about, oh, they're taking the beaches and they're privatizing the beaches, this is not unique to East Portland. It is all across Jamaica. It's a whole of Jamaica thing. And both parties have done it. None of them have done anything to give us back the beaches, neither the JLP nor the PNP. So we cannot lay it at Ann-Marie's feet. And I'm not saying I think the Vazes are good people, because I don't trust Darius Vaz further than I can throw him. Right? I'm just saying the reasons that you're giving us are not making any sense. You're not adding up. It just seems like, and all the people obviously talking were PNP, of course, so it's partisan politics, just tribalistic politics coming to bear its ugly head. That literally was it. It would have been awesome if we saw an overwhelming majority of people saying, I voted for Ann-Marie in 2020, but she was on some bullshit and I had to vote for the PNP. That would have made sense. But it seemed that the PNP came out in drove. That's what happened, and they voted for Isat because they wanted a PNP seat. And they blamed Ann-Marie for Linville Bloomfield's death, which don't make no sense. Ann-Marie didn't kill the guy. Ann-Marie didn't set it up to have him murdered. Even if, because they're suggesting that he was murdered by the JLP, that's what they're suggesting. But Ann-Marie didn't do it. Even if that's a thing, Ann-Marie didn't do it. So I don't know what that have to do with her. I mean, I hate politics because it has always been so divisive. And as much as I'm trying to be in the middle ground, meaning I'm trying to choose Jamaica. So like this election, I would have voted PNP. When I looked at the policies, when I looked at the manifestos, I looked at the JLP's manifesto, I looked at the PNP's manifesto, the PNP manifesto resonated with me. So had I casted my vote this election, I would have voted for the PNP. Of course, like I said, my vote was all the way in St. Ann, and I wasn't going to leave Montego Bay, go to St. Ann to vote. I'm not doing that shit. I would have voted for Andre Hahn. And come next election, if the JLP's manifesto look better, then that's who I'm going to vote for. I'm not voting for a party. I am voting for the people who I think have the better policy. Of course, you're not going to agree with every single policy. That would make any sense. But when you're looking at, on the balance of probability, which one is going to do more good or which one you think is better, that is how I make my assessment. I use two things to determine who I'm going to vote for. I look at the manifestos and then I look at the debates. So when they do the debates, I listen to what they're saying because, you can gauge whether or not what they have in the policy document, them actually have a solid plan to see it carried out. So that is how I decided in the 2 times that I voted. It was the manifesto and the election debates that I used because I don't know these people who are running as MPs in it because I don't know. I've never, in all the time that I have been eligible to vote, I've never seen a member of parliament come to me and say, boy, I am so and so, and I would like to have you vote. It's never happened. And the first election I voted was in 2007. So you can do the math. In all that time, I have never seen, neither from the JLP or the PNP, nobody ever approach me and say, I am the councillor. And when I lived in Trelawney, and I wasn't a bush me living up, them find the bush and come tell you, say, oh, I am so and so, and I'm running for councillor and I would like your vote. And since I've moved to Montego Bay, never, not once. When I was in St. Ann, it was the same thing. I never saw anybody come. I don't know if it's because I lived in sort of a residential area. I don't know, but it's not a gated community. That's much. So you don't have to go through a security to get in the thing. It's open, but it's more kind of upscale. People live around this side. So I don't know if that's it, but I've never seen any MP, any councillor, nobody who's running for anything ever come and say, hey, I am running for council, I'm running for this or whatever. I've never seen that. It's kind of weird. So it's kind of like, how do you vote? Because I would know who I'm voting for. To be honest, if I were to vote in this election, I would know who I'm voting for if I went to St. Ann. I would just be voting on the manifesto because I don't know who the MP is. And if I was voting, if my vote was down here, of course, as long as it's in the division that Andre Hahn, I would have voted for Andre Hahn. 100%. No doubt about it. I would. Marley Malahuford couldn't get my vote. Not even if she had by it. She couldn't get my vote. So yeah, I mean, I've spoken long enough. But East Portland, you guys were just engaged in tribalist politics, and it is an indictment on us as a people overall, and we're very disappointed in you. You can be upset all you want. You did not vote for the right reasons. You didn't vote for the right reasons, and Isat is a new MP, and we hope that he does right by you guys, but the explanations that I see so far in the social media space don't hold water. So the charge of being Port Judas stands, right? And you have been accused of engaging in tribalist politics, and we find you guilty. You can vex all you want, but the truth may cause offense. It is not a sin. And on that note, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.